This is Brian Chesky. He was born on August 29th, 1981, in Niskayuna, New York, in the United States. From a very young age, Brian loved drawing. While many kids spent time playing video games or watching television, he preferred sitting with paper and pencil, sketching objects for hours. He drew shoes, furniture, toys, and cars. Almost anything he could imagine. Brian never dreamed of becoming a businessman. His dream was simple. He wanted to become a designer, someone who creates objects people use in everyday life. When it was time for college, Brian followed that dream. He enrolled at the Rhode Island School of Design, one of the most respected design schools in the United States. That's where he met Joe Gebbia. The two quickly became friends and discovered they'd shared a passion for creativity, design, and building new ideas. After graduating, they decided to move to San Francisco, a city known for technology startups and innovation. It seemed like the perfect place to build something new. Living in San Francisco was exciting, but also stressful. The city was full of entrepreneurs, investors, and ambitious founders trying to build the next big tech company. But Brian and Joe were not startup founders yet. They were just two designers sharing a small apartment and trying to figure out what to do next. Money was tight, bills were piling up, and the rent was getting closer every day. That pressure forced them to think creatively. Not long after moving to San Francisco, Brian and Joe were almost out of money. Their apartment rent was due, and they had no clear way to pay it. At the same time, a large design conference was taking place in the city. Thousands of visitors were arriving, and almost every hotel room was fully booked. That's when Joe had a simple but unusual idea. He looked at Brian and said, "What if we rent out space in our apartment? Nothing fancy, nothing professional, just space on the floor." They bought 3 air mattresses and placed them in the living room. They built a simple website and called it Air Bed and Breakfast. The concept was simple: a cheap place to sleep, an air mattress, and breakfast in the morning. To their surprise, 3 people actually paid to stay there. It might sound small, but it raised an important question. If 3 people were willing to sleep in their apartment, how many others might be willing to do the same somewhere else in the world? At first, they didn't think they were creating a company. They just needed a way to make some extra money. But after those first 3 guests stayed in their apartment, something interesting happened. The experience felt different from a normal hotel stay. They talked with their guests, they shared stories, they connected. Brian realized something important. People weren't just looking for a place to sleep, sometimes they were looking for a more personal travel experience. Soon they decided to turn the idea into something bigger. They invited a programmer friend named Nathan Blekharczyk to help build a real platform. Nathan focused on the technical side while Brian and Joe worked on the concept and design. Building the platform was not easy. There were bugs, broken features, and constant technical problems. Payments needed to work. Listings needed to appear correctly. Search results needed to make sense. But little by little, they kept improving the platform. One of the biggest challenges was trust. Sleeping in a stranger's home sounded strange to many travelers, so the founders had to figure out how to make people feel safe. They introduced profiles for hosts. They added reviews and ratings. Guests could review hosts, and hosts could review guests. Slowly, this system created trust between people who had never met before. Even as the idea slowly grew, investors still didn't believe in it. Many venture capitalists rejected the company. Some said the idea was just too weird. Others said it would never scale. One investor even said people would never trust strangers enough to stay in their homes. Brian and his co-founders heard no again and again. With almost no money left, the founders came up with a strange idea during the 2008 U.S. presidential election. They created collectible cereal boxes, one called Obama O's, another called Cap'n McCain. Each box sold for $40. Surprisingly, people bought them. They managed to raise around $30,000, enough to keep the company alive for a little longer. Soon after, the startup was accepted into Y Combinator, one of Silicon Valley's most famous startup accelerators. There, they received simple advice: talk to your users. Brian took that advice seriously. He traveled to New York and visited hosts personally. He talked with them, listened to their problems, and tried to understand how the platform could improve. One thing Brian noticed immediately was that many listings had poor photos. So he did something unusual. He started taking professional photos of homes himself. Better photos made listings look more trustworthy. And that small change dramatically improved bookings. In the early days, most activity on the platform happened in just a few cities. New York quickly became one of the most important markets. Travelers visiting the city often struggle to find affordable hotels. Airbnb offered a different option, staying in real apartments. As more hosts joined the platform, the number of listings increased, and more travelers began discovering the service. Once the platform gained traction, growth started accelerating. More hosts meant more homes. More homes meant more travelers. And more travelers encouraged even more hosts to join. Cities around the world started appearing in the platform: Paris, London, Tokyo, Barcelona. The idea that began in a small San Francisco apartment was now spreading across the globe. Airbnb didn't just become a successful company, it changed how people travel. Instead of only staying in hotels, travelers could now stay in real homes and real neighborhoods. For homeowners, it created a new opportunity to earn extra income. For some hosts, it even became a full-time business. As Airbnb grew, Brian Chesky remained deeply involved in the company. Unlike many founders who step away, he continued leading Airbnb as CEO. His background in design shaped the platform's user experience. He believed every detail should feel simple, clear, and trustworthy. Today, Airbnb operates in more than 200 countries and regions. Millions of homes are listed on the platform. And it all started with a simple problem: two friends who couldn't afford their rent, three air mattresses on the floor, and an idea that sounded strange at first. The name of that young designer is Brian Chesky, and that small idea eventually became one of the largest hospitality companies in the world: Airbnb.